Hello, we are the social emotional group. My name is Dylan Kraus. We also have
I'm Dorian Roberts.
And Brandon Jimenez. So here is our first slide. We are presenting our mission statement, in which it is to inform of the importance of social emotional communication skills throughout the different stages of development.
SLOs. What we're going to cover over our slides today would be to describe the development of pro-social behaviors, explain the benefits of social emotional learning, describing peer influences on behavior, and also tracking back behavior to childhood.
the theorists that we look through the lens of are Erik Erikson and his theory of psychosocial development, Sigmund Freud and his psychoanalysis theories, and Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. But primarily our focus is on Erik Erikson and his psychosocial development theory, as you can see the chart of right next to it.
And also Gardner's in theories, some of Gardner's theories of multiple intelligence involve interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, musical intelligence, and linguistic intelligence.
So social emotional learning. We have a link here to some social emotional learning practices, and these include emotional check-ins and identification cards to help students better understand their emotions, just little pictures of emotions that you can present to them and they'll choose which emotion they're feeling. It includes group work, nurturing a culture of kindness, utilizing reflective writing, conflict management through peer mediation, among others that are outlined on that webpage. And for a little activity, if you want, you can pause the video, go through the link, and meet up with your peers and try to discuss some other social emotional learning practices that could be implemented in the classroom. Implementation of social emotional learning. In the research, Social and Emotional Learning as a Public Health Approach to Education, they explain how current implementation is only used to help students that have already developed mental disorders or other substantial issues. Researchers wish to implement it to all students more holistically as a way to prevent disorders and behavioral issues. Effects and goals of social emotional learning. Creating equitable learning conditions among students K through 12 through use of SEL practices. We can foster SEL through a variety of educational approaches that promote students' capacity to integrate thinking, emotion, and behavior to deal effectively with everyday personal and social challenges, according to a study by Greenberg et al. Evidence-based on social emotional learning programs, when implemented effectively, lead to measurable and potentially long-lasting improvements in many areas of children's lives, according to the same study. SEL seeks to put a focus on self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. All of these aspects help to promote a more pro-social student, which will help them become more well-adjusted adults. And as you can see in the corner, there's a little circle describing all the social emotional learning aspects. In a nationwide survey conducted by Bridgeland et al. In 2014, a survey of teachers showed that 97% of them believe that SEL can benefit students from all socioeconomic backgrounds. And research reviews consistently show that SEL programs have positive effects, reporting significant effects on positive social behavior, conduct problems, and academic performance. Career path connections. So for me, I want to be a clinical psychologist for veterans, and many veterans lose their sense of community and identity when transitioning out of the military. This leads to a degradation of social and emotional skills. Implementation of SEL in early years will work as a preventative measure, yet SEL practices can also be applied in group therapy sessions in order to redevelop the social emotional skills of returning veterans. It is my assumption that since early SEL implementation works to prevent illnesses like anxiety and depression in developing adults, It could also reintegrate veterans into society and help them with the same illnesses. As a hopeful clinical psychologist for veterans, implementation of SEL may have extremely positive effects on returning veterans.
Now, onto my findings of my research. I found from theorist Eric Erickson's point of view, proximal goals of social emotional learning are to establish safe and supportive learning environments and to foster social and emotional competencies, including the abilities to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show caring and concern for others, and to establish and maintain positive relationships, to make responsible decisions. Social emotional competencies is a capacity to coordinate cognition, affect, and behavior that allows individuals to thrive in diverse cultures and contexts, achieve specific tasks, positive development outcomes. How this affects young adults in their social development. During the early adulthood stages of development, ages 18 through 25, young adults are more likely to engage in substance abuse, drive while intoxicated, and have unprotected sex. Lack of social development skills lead to having trouble socializing, academic struggles, and psychiatric conditions such as conduct disorder problems. Another issue that presents itself is the risk of criminal activity and behavior that is above the norm for individuals with social emotional disorders or development, pardon me. Ways to approach the issue of socializing. For young adults, some things that can help is things such as joining clubs, volunteer work, or going to more social events that can be included such as school clubs and community gatherings. And for younger kids, to sort of get them accustomed to being in more social spaces, and to sort of help as a preventative measure of psychological disorders that can present themselves later on, is to practice these things on the slide, such as being present and observant, creating a supportive atmosphere, and sharing life experiences, stimulating discussions, and giving students a proper opportunity to practice. And here in this link are more further suggestions and information that can further help individuals that may need it. And now I'll pass it on to Dorian.
Now we are moving on to pro-social behaviors, meaning that is just behavior through which people benefit through others. So as we have for here, experience and examples, children at a certain age, from first grade and up, of course, children begin to understand the value of other people's thoughts, feelings, and experiences around the age of 2. I know I did say first grade, but it's a little earlier, as you see. They begin to show empathy towards one another, sharing, cooperating in all acts of generosity. So for example, like when the child of an age of 2 and older, just teaching them proper manners, like saying thank you, trying to include other kids or other peers in activities, definitely volunteering for help. A lot of kids love to help as much as them. They don't really ask, but if you voluntold them type of thing, a lot of kids do love to help. Consoling another peer. So if one of the kids see another kid get hurt or bullied, or they don't feel some type of way, if they don't feel good in some type of way, they will definitely go up to the peer like, hey, check in with them, see if everything's going on. Including everyone around, whether or not like you don't want to be there, just trying to make them feel included so they don't feel left out. and then defending one another. So that's when their friendships come in together and really build up. In the next slide, please. And with that, from what I've got, there is 6 types of pro-social behavior. So the first one is altruistic. So that is voluntary action inspired by goodwill and consideration for others, even at the cost of their own. So right under it is random acts of kindness are frequently sparked by empathy and internalized principles of helping others. So that's just a student or a child of that age is going out their way just to really help others out of the kindness of their heart, just to like, hey, this is how I feel like this can help you, or, you know, I just feel something inside of me that wanted me to help you type of thing. And you got compliant, that involves aiding others whenever they need help. So younger children are more likely to engage in compliant, helping, and cooperative behaviors compared to spontaneous helping. So if, like I brought up earlier, if a child was on the playground or if they're in the classroom and someone hurt themselves, to the best of their ability, most kids will try to console them and just try to say, hey, are you okay? Give them a Band-Aid, tell the teacher, get the aid, whoever's around, whatever they can work with that is around. Next would be emotional. So that's helpers in emotional situations respond with sympathetic reaction, other traits such as sympathy and higher morale. So that's just earlier before, like if a kid is crying or if they're angry or they're just a little bit confused on a certain assignment or just something's going on with their day, the child or even someone of our age as well, we see that's bothering them, we will do our best to, hey, how can I help you? Being that listening ear, really trying to, you know, lift them up. The next one will be dire, assisting those in the time of need, whether it be a crisis or an emergency. I would say that would be more for like an older range, but I'm sure it can definitely go always around, just because of a crisis or an emergency. We have a better chance to try to get there, or just better communication in a way, since we are able to talk more on the phone and everything like that. But that can also work too. Public included people who perform helpful acts in front of others. So for example, that I have on top of my head is more like social media, where you see the videos of people going out the way, like, hey, I see this man or this woman, they're going through something, ask them a question like, oh, since you did this kind act, let me repay you with this, or just going out their way to give them charity money, a car, haircut, just a smaller kind of acts. And the last one would be anonymous, assisting those who need help without being acknowledged. So I would see that as like, let's say you happen to write a note down and you give it to a random person and you just say, hey, give this to someone else as well, to kind of uplift them and benefit them through their day. Then next slide, please. And then lastly, with that, peers influence behavior. Throughout life, but primarily before adolescence, the behavior of peer pressure individuals to commit to that same behavior to feel accepted and valued by those around them. So with that, that definitely affects a lot of us throughout our entire life, just because there is a certain point, especially being in a school environment, you try your best to really fit in with a certain crowd, or just to either be, oh, I want to be that cool person, that funny person, or just whatever type of clique that you're really trying to get into. And then during adolescence, a massive developmental change occurs, and some resistance to peer influences is developed. However, early SEL implementation can help student learners develop good pro-social habits, and those who persist in adulthood. So like with the 6 types of pro-social behaviors that I brought up before, if you are able to practice at least one of those growing up, or even now, you're still growing as you go on, you will just kind of shift into a certain way, if that makes sense. Here are our citations.
And this concludes our presentation.
Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hope you learned a lot. Any questions, you can gladly ask us.